Commander Zephic's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among the Cathari as he reviewed the human military files displayed on his holographic interface. The bridge of the massive dreadnought Void's Edge hummed with activity as officers from 12 different species coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. The Devourers had broken through the Outer Rim defenses, and every world in the spiral arm faced extinction. So the humans want to contribute snipers? Zephic's secondary arms gestured dismissively at the data streams. Single-shot weapons? In an age of plasma artillery and quantum disruptors? Admiral Thorax, a towering Vrex Ani whose crystalline exoskeleton reflected the bridge's blue lighting, leaned over the tactical display. His compound eyes focused on the human specifications with visible disdain. Their longest recorded kill is barely 3 kilometers. Our standard pulse rifles have effective ranges 10 times that distance. What possible use could these primitives serve? The human liaison, Colonel Sarah Martinez, stood rigidly at attention despite the obvious mockery surrounding her. Her dark eyes remained fixed on the tactical display, showing Devourer swarm movements across 17 star systems. She had volunteered for this assignment, knowing full well that humanity's recent admission to the Galactic Defense Coalition came with more skepticism than respect. "With respect, Admiral," Martinez said, her voice steady despite the weight of dismissal in the room. "Our snipers bring unique capabilities that complement your advanced technology. We've studied the Devourer behavioral patterns, and we believe precision elimination of key targets could disrupt their hive coordination." General Vorth, whose species, the Naltec, were renowned for their strategic brilliance, raised his elongated head from a datapad. "Human, your species has been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. We have fought the Devourers for millennia. These creatures operate on quantum-linked consciousness networks. Destroying individual units has minimal impact on the swarm." The bridge fell silent, except for the steady hum of the ship's massive engines. Martinez felt the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon her, each representing civilizations with technologies that made human achievements look like stone tools. The Coalition had accepted humanity's membership more out of desperation than respect. Every world that could contribute even a single ship or soldier was being called upon to face the Devourer threat. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Martinez asked, directing her attention to Commander Zephic, who held overall command of this sector's defense. Zephic's mandibles spread wider, amused by the human's persistence. "Granted, though I suspect you'll only further demonstrate your species' naivety about modern warfare." Martinez activated her personal datapad, projecting holographic images of Devourer specimens captured during previous engagements. "The Coalition's analysis focuses on the swarm's quantum network, which is accurate. However, our xenobiologists have identified something your scans might have overlooked. Each swarm unit possesses what we term synaptic nodes, specialized nerve clusters that process quantum signals. These nodes are extremely small, roughly the size of a human thumb, and located in specific positions on each creature type." The assembled officers leaned closer, their initial dismissal slowly giving way to grudging interest. The holographic Devourer specimens rotated slowly, highlighting microscopic structures that previous Coalition scans had classified as minor anatomical features. Dr. Kellak, the Coalition's chief xenobiologist and member of the highly advanced Ashanti Republic, manipulated the display with his 4-fingered hands. "These structures were deemed non-critical in our analysis. They appear to serve only basic motor function coordination." "That's what we thought initially," Martinez continued, her confidence growing as she saw doubt creeping into some faces. "But our field tests on captured specimens revealed something remarkable. When these nodes are damaged with sufficient precision, the affected unit doesn't just die. It sends a quantum distress signal that temporarily disrupts the local network coordination of nearby swarm members." Admiral Thorax's massive form shifted, his crystalline plates grinding together in a sound that indicated deep thought among his people. You're suggesting that precise targeting of these microscopic structures could create tactical advantages beyond simple elimination? Exactly. Our computer models suggest that a skilled marksman, targeting these nodes with sufficient accuracy, could create cascade disruption effects throughout a swarm formation. The affected area would experience communication breakdowns lasting anywhere from 30 seconds to several minutes, depending on the swarm density and the number of successful strikes. General Vorth's strategic mind immediately grasped the implications. 30 seconds of coordination loss in a devourer swarm could allow conventional forces to advance through positions that would otherwise require massive bombardment to clear. Commander Zephyk found himself reconsidering his dismissal of human capabilities. The data presented was intriguing, if unproven in actual combat conditions. However, his tactical training emphasized proven methods over theoretical possibilities. Even if your theory proves correct, Zephyk said, his tone still skeptical, the precision required would be extraordinary. These synaptic nodes are targets measured in centimeters, often concealed by armor plating or biological shielding. Your primitive kinetic weapons would need to achieve accuracy that challenges even our most advanced targeting systems. Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Which brings us to the unique advantages of human snipers, sir. Our marksmen don't rely solely on technological assistance. Human beings possess an innate ability for spatial reasoning, pattern recognition, and instinctive targeting that our AI systems can't replicate. Combined with generations of refinement in long-distance precision shooting, our snipers can achieve accuracy levels that pure technology cannot match. The bridge's main display suddenly flickered with incoming priority communications. Emergency signals streamed in from the Kepler defense grid. The Devourers had broken through the outer perimeter ahead of schedule. Real-time footage showed massive bioships descending on industrial worlds, disgorging millions of creatures that moved with terrifying coordination. All theoretical discussions are now academic, Admiral Thorax announced, his voice carrying the weight of command. We deploy in 6 hours. Every available asset will be committed to Operation Last Stand. As the bridge erupted into coordinated chaos, with officers rushing to battle stations and communication arrays lighting up with deployment orders, Commander Zephyk found himself facing a critical decision. The human proposal was unproven, but conventional tactics had failed to stop the Devourers across dozens of worlds. "Colonel Martinez," he called out over the noise, "your sniper teams will be deployed with the 3rd Assault Wave. You'll have exactly 1 engagement to prove your theories. If your people fail to demonstrate effectiveness, they'll be reassigned to conventional infantry support." Martinez snapped to attention, understanding that this represented humanity's only chance to prove their worth to the coalition. "Understood, sir. My teams won't disappoint you." As she hurried from the bridge to brief her waiting snipers, Martinez carried with her the weight of not just military strategy, but her species' reputation among the stars. The other officers returned to their preparations, most already dismissing the human contribution as a desperate measure unlikely to affect the battle's outcome. In the ship's armory levels, 24 human snipers methodically prepared their equipment. Unlike the energy weapons favored by most coalition forces, these soldiers carried weapons that would have been recognizable to marksmen from centuries past, refined and perfected, but still operating on the fundamental principle of propelling a projectile with devastating accuracy. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, a veteran of Earth's corporate wars, carefully adjusted the scope on his Remington Model 2387. The weapon represented 4 centuries of human engineering refinement, capable of placing a round within a 2-centimeter target area at distances exceeding 4 kilometers. But against devourer swarms, such range would be meaningless if the targeting theory proved incorrect. "Think the brass knows what they're asking for?" asked Corporal Lisa Chen. checking the thermal regulation systems on her Barrett quantum rifle. Her weapon was designed for extreme range work, capable of maintaining accuracy even in the variable gravity fields that surrounded Devourer bioships. Morrison shrugged, his weathered face showing the calm concentration that marked professional soldiers everywhere. Doesn't matter what they think. We've got a job to do, and we're going to do it right. The whole human race is watching, even if they don't know it yet. The snipers represented every major military tradition on Earth. Former Special Forces operators, Olympic shooting champions, hunters who had spent lifetimes perfecting their craft. They had volunteered for this assignment knowing that humanity's future in the galactic community might depend on their performance in the coming battle. As the massive coalition fleet prepared for hyperspace transit, carrying millions of soldiers from dozens of worlds toward what might be the final battle against the Devourers, 24 humans quietly prepared to prove that sometimes the oldest solutions were the most effective ones. Their weapons were simple, their training was extensive, and their target was the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever known. The dismissal they had faced on the command bridge was about to be tested in the crucible of interstellar warfare, where theories became reality and reputations were forged in the fire of combat. Whether humanity's contribution would be remembered as brilliant innovation or foolish desperation remained to be determined by the precision of their aim and the courage of their hearts. The hyperspace transit to the Kepler system took 18 hours, during which the massive coalition fleet maintained radio silence to avoid detection by Devourer scout swarms. Staff Sergeant Morrison used the time to study tactical displays showing the target zone, a mining colony on Kepler 442c, where 3 million civilians waited for evacuation, while Devourer bioships established beachheads across the planet's surface. "Look at those movement patterns," Morrison muttered to Corporal Chen as they examined real-time footage from orbital reconnaissance drones. The Devourers moved across the landscape in perfect coordination, their chitinous bodies flowing like liquid death around defensive positions. "They're not just hunting, they're herding the civilians toward specific locations." Chen nodded grimly. "Intelligence briefings said they prefer to process large groups simultaneously, something about quantum efficiency in their digestive networks." She paused, studying closer formations within the swarm. "You see what I'm seeing in grid section 7 Alpha?" Morrison adjusted the display magnification, focusing on a cluster of larger Devourer forms moving among the standard warrior-class creatures. These specimens stood nearly 3 meters tall, their elongated skulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to coordinate the movements of hundreds of smaller units around them. "Command variants," Morrison said, recognizing the creatures from Coalition intelligence reports. "The brass thinks those are the primary network nodes for local swarm coordination. And if our theory is right about the synaptic disruption," Chen added, checking the ballistic calculator on her rifle's targeting system. "Taking out those big ones should cause maximum chaos in the surrounding formations." The human sniper teams had spent the transit time reviewing every available piece of data about Devourer anatomy and behavior. Unlike the Coalition's standard military doctrine, which emphasized overwhelming firepower and technological superiority, the humans had focused on identifying precise points of weakness. Their approach seemed almost primitive compared to the quantum artillery and antimatter projectors wielded by their alien allies, but Morrison had learned long ago that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. As the fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, emergency signals immediately flooded the communication networks. The situation on Kepler 442c had deteriorated rapidly. Devourer forces now controlled 60% of the planet's surface, and civilian evacuation ships were taking heavy casualties from bioship interceptors. Commander Zephic's voice echoed through the ship's communication systems as he addressed the entire Coalition force. "All units, prepare for immediate deployment. Intelligence indicates the Devourers are preparing to establish a permanent hive complex on the planet's surface. If they succeed, this system becomes a staging ground for attacks throughout the sector. We cannot allow that to happen. The human contingent received their specific deployment orders 30 minutes later. They would be inserted with the 3rd Assault Battalion of Coalition Marines, tasked with breaking through Devourer lines around the primary evacuation site. The alien officers commanding the operation had made it clear that the human snipers were an experimental addition to the standard assault doctrine. Colonel Martinez briefed her teams one final time as their transport ships prepared for atmospheric entry. Remember, this isn't about proving human superiority. It's about demonstrating that we can contribute meaningfully to the Coalition's efforts. Every shot needs to count, not just for tactical effect, but for the future of human participation in galactic affairs. The insertion was chaos from the moment their dropships hit the atmosphere. Devourer biofighters swarmed around the Coalition landing craft, firing streams of corrosive bioplasma that ate through conventional armor plating. 2 transports carrying Vrexani assault troops were shot down before reaching the surface, their crews consumed by the planet's acidic atmosphere after their ship's environmental systems failed. Morrison's team landed in a designated safe zone that turned out to be anything but safe. Devourer warriors had infiltrated the area during the night, burrowing through the rocky soil to emerge behind Coalition defensive lines. The landing zone erupted into close-quarters combat as alien soldiers fought with pulse rifles and energy blades against creatures designed for killing. "Overwatch positions now!" Morrison shouted to his sniper teams as Coalition Marines established a defensive perimeter. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, splitting into 2-man teams and finding elevated positions that provided clear fields of fire over the battlefield. From his position atop a rocky outcrop overlooking the main assault corridor, Morrison could see the full scope of the Devourer forces they faced. Thousands of warrior-class creatures moved in perfect synchronization, their movements creating geometric patterns across the landscape that spoke of hive-mind coordination beyond anything humanity had encountered. Among them, the larger command variants directed the swarm's activities with pulsing bioluminescent signals. "Range to target Cluster 1 Alpha, approximately 2,800 meters," reported Corporal Williams, Morrison's spotter. "Wind speed negligible, atmospheric density standard, multiple command variants visible in the formation." Morrison steadied his rifle, adjusting the scope to account for the planet's gravity differential. Through the magnified optics, he could see individual Devourer creatures with startling clarity. Their anatomy was as alien as anything in Coalition databases. 6-limbed predators with razor-sharp appendages and heads that seemed designed specifically for tearing through armor plating. But Morrison wasn't interested in their weapons or their obvious physical advantages. His attention focused on the tiny synaptic nodes that human researchers had identified as potential weakness points. On the command variants, these structures were slightly larger and more prominent, glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns that coordinated the swarm's movements. "First target acquired," Morrison whispered into his communication system. "Command variant, approximately 3.2 meters tall, center of formation 1 Alpha. Engaging synaptic node cluster." The shot was perfect. A 15-millimeter tungsten core round traveling at hypersonic velocity, guided by 4 centuries of human marksmanship tradition and enhanced by the finest targeting systems Earth could produce. The round struck the Devourer command variant's synaptic node with surgical precision, penetrating the creature's natural armor to destroy the microscopic nerve cluster beneath. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The targeted creature didn't simply die. It convulsed violently, its bioluminescent patterns flashing in chaotic, random sequences. Every Devourer within a 100-meter radius suddenly stopped moving in coordination, their perfect formations dissolving into confused, disorganized clusters. "Target down. Significant disruption effect observed," Williams reported, his voice tight with excitement. Surrounding units showing loss of coordination, estimated duration unknown. Across the battlefield, other human sniper teams were achieving similar results. Each successful hit on a command variant's synaptic nodes created pockets of chaos within the previously unstoppable Devourer advance. Coalition forces, who had been falling back under overwhelming pressure, suddenly found opportunities to counterattack against confused and disorganized enemies. Admiral Thorax, monitoring the engagement from the fleet command ship, watched in growing amazement as tactical displays showed the impossible. Devourer formations were breaking down under precision fire from primitive kinetic weapons. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his tactical staff. Dr. Kelak, the Coalition's xenobiologist, was analyzing incoming data streams with increasing excitement. "The human theory appears to be correct, Admiral. Damage to the synaptic nodes is causing cascade failures in local quantum communication networks. The affected creatures are operating on basic instinctual programming rather than hive coordination." On the ground, Morrison's team had identified their next target, a massive Devourer bioconstruct that stood nearly 5 meters tall and seemed to be coordinating multiple swarm formations simultaneously. This creature represented a higher tier in the Devourer hierarchy, its synaptic nodes larger and more complex than anything they had engaged previously. "That's our primary target," Morrison said, studying the creature through his scope. "Range approximately 4,200 meters. Moving target with irregular movement patterns. This is going to require perfect timing." Williams fed targeting data to Morrison's rifle systems while monitoring environmental factors that could affect the shot's trajectory. "Creature is pausing every 47 seconds to coordinate with subordinate formations. Window of opportunity approximately 3 seconds per cycle." Morrison watched the massive creature's movements, learning its rhythms and habits. Unlike human soldiers, who might vary their patterns to avoid predictable behavior, the Devourer's hive mind programming created regular, repeatable cycles. It was a weakness that human snipers could exploit. The shot, when it came, was the result of years of training and decades of human military tradition. Morrison's rifle fired at the exact moment the bioconstruct paused in its coordination cycle, sending a tungsten penetrator across more than 4 kilometers of hostile terrain to strike a target smaller than a human fist. The result exceeded every projection from human computer models. The massive bioconstruct collapsed instantly, its death throes sending chaotic quantum signals throughout the entire swarm network. Hundreds of Devourer warriors suddenly found themselves cut off from hive coordination, their previously perfect teamwork replaced by confusion and panic. Coalition forces across the battlefield reported the same phenomenon. Devourer units were losing coordination, forming into smaller, disorganized groups that could be engaged and defeated by conventional military tactics. The tide of battle, which had seemed hopeless just hours before, was beginning to turn. Commander Zefik found himself forced to reconsider every assumption he had made about human capabilities. The primitive weapons his staff had dismissed were proving more effective against Devourer forces than quantum artillery that could level mountains. The humans had identified a weakness that the Coalition's most advanced scientists had overlooked. "All units, coordinate your advances with human sniper fire," Zefik ordered over the fleet communication network. "These disruption effects are providing tactical opportunities that must be exploited immediately." As the battle continued to rage across Kepler 442c's surface, 24 human snipers continued their methodical work of dismantling Devourer coordination networks, one precise shot at a time. Their quiet professionalism and devastating effectiveness were slowly earning the respect of alien soldiers who had initially dismissed them as primitives. The real test, however, was still to come. The evacuation of Kepler 442c had been proceeding for 16 hours when the situation changed dramatically. Deep beneath the planet's surface, Devourer bioengineers had been constructing something that Coalition intelligence had failed to detect. A massive hive nexus that would coordinate Devourer operations across multiple star systems simultaneously. Morrison was repositioning his sniper team to a new overwatch position when the ground began to tremble. What emerged from the planet's crust defied every previous understanding of Devourer capabilities. The creature that surfaced was easily the size of a Coalition battleship, its biomechanical structure pulsing with quantum energy patterns that immediately disrupted electronic systems across a 50-kilometer radius. "Command, this is Overwatch 7, Morrison reported into his communication system, though the massive interference was making radio contact increasingly difficult. "We have a new contact, classification unknown. Recommend immediate tactical analysis." Dr. Kellach's voice crackled through the static-filled radio link from the orbiting fleet. "Sergeant Morrison, we're detecting quantum signature patterns unlike anything in our databases. This appears to be a Devourer command nexus, a living supercomputer capable of coordinating millions of individual units across vast distances." Through his rifle scope, Morrison could see the truth of that assessment. The massive creature's head contained dozens of synaptic node clusters, each one larger and more complex than anything they had encountered. Bioluminescent patterns flowed across its body like liquid lightning, and wherever those patterns touched, Devourer units responded with renewed coordination and tactical sophistication. Across the battlefield, Coalition forces that had been making steady progress against disorganized Devourer formations suddenly found themselves facing enemies that moved with perfect precision once again. Worse, new swarm formations were emerging from hidden positions, their movements coordinated by the massive Nexus creature's quantum consciousness. "All human sniper teams, priority target designation Alpha Prime." Colonel Martinez's voice cut through the radio interference. "Whatever that thing is, it's putting the Devourers back in control of this engagement. We need it down immediately." Morrison studied the massive creature through his scope, calculating ranges and angles of attack. The Nexus was positioned in a natural depression that provided it with cover from most directions, but human snipers had been trained to find shooting solutions in impossible situations. "Range to target 6,800 meters, Williams reported, his voice steady, despite the chaos erupting around their position. Multiple synaptic clusters visible, but the creature's natural armor appears significantly thicker than previous targets. Standard rounds may not achieve sufficient penetration." Morrison switched his rifle to specialized armor-piercing ammunition, depleted uranium cores wrapped in graphene sheaths, designed to penetrate the heaviest armor humanity had encountered. Each round cost more to manufacture than most soldiers earned in a month, but the situation called for maximum effectiveness regardless of expense. "First shot, testing penetration capabilities," Morrison announced to his team and any other snipers monitoring the tactical network. The shot was perfect, striking the Nexus creature's primary synaptic cluster with devastating accuracy. The round penetrated the creature's natural armor, but the effect was far less than hoped. Instead of the immediate disruption that characterized hits on smaller Devourer units, the Nexus merely flickered slightly in its coordination patterns before resuming full functionality. "Negative effect on primary target," Morrison reported grimly. "Creature appears to have redundant synaptic systems. Single-round engagement ineffective." Admiral Thorax, monitoring the engagement from orbit, felt a familiar sense of despair settling over the Coalition command staff. If human precision weapons couldn't affect the Nexus creature, then conventional firepower certainly wouldn't be sufficient. The Devourers were about to achieve their strategic objective despite every effort to prevent it. But Morrison was already adapting to the new challenge. Years of combat experience had taught him that when individual action proved insufficient, coordinated team tactics often succeeded where solo efforts failed. All sniper teams, coordinate fire mission on target Alpha Prime, Morrison ordered over the tactical network. We're going to hit multiple synaptic clusters simultaneously. If this thing has redundant systems, we'll overload them all at once. Across the battlefield, 24 human marksmen adjusted their positions and targeting solutions. Each sniper identified a different synaptic cluster on the massive creature's body, calculating firing solutions that would allow simultaneous engagement despite the vast distances and complex terrain involved. The coordination required was extraordinary. Multiple shooters engaging different targets on the same creature, timing their shots to arrive within milliseconds of each other despite varying ranges and environmental conditions. It was the kind of precision shooting that Coalition tactical doctrine considered impossible without computer-assisted targeting systems. "Time hack in 10 seconds, Morrison announced. "All teams confirm ready status." One by one, the human sniper teams reported their readiness. Each marksman had identified their assigned target cluster and calculated the precise timing needed for simultaneous impact. The mathematics were complex, but the principle was simple. Overwhelm the creature's redundant systems with coordinated precision fire. "Execute," Morrison commanded. 24 rifles fired in a coordinated sequence, their tungsten penetrators streaking across kilometers of hostile terrain toward the massive Nexus creature. The timing was perfect. Each round arrived at its target within a span of 0.3 seconds, striking different synaptic clusters across the creature's vast form. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Nexus creature's bioluminescent patterns erupted into chaotic flashing as its quantum consciousness networks overloaded. Multiple system failures cascaded through its neural structure, creating feedback loops that amplified the damage far beyond what the individual rounds could have achieved. The creature's death scream was audible across 50 kilometers, a sound that registered on frequencies both audible and quantum. As the massive organism collapsed, its quantum coordination signals died with it, leaving millions of Devourer units across the planet suddenly cut off from their central command authority. Coalition forces reported the change immediately. Devourer formations that had been moving with renewed precision suddenly dissolved into chaotic clusters of individual creatures, their hive coordination replaced by basic survival instincts. The tide of battle shifted dramatically as organized resistance collapsed into scattered pockets of confused enemies. Commander Zephic found himself staring at tactical displays that showed something unprecedented in the history of Devourer warfare. A complete breakdown of enemy coordination across an entire planetary theater. The creatures that had threatened galactic civilization were fleeing in disorganized panic, their quantum networks shattered by precision fire from primitive kinetic weapons. "How is this possible?" Admiral Thorax demanded, his crystalline form reflecting the bridge's emergency lighting as he studied the engagement data. 24 soldiers with individual weapons have accomplished what our fleet bombardment couldn't achieve. Dr. Kellak was analyzing the engagement data with growing amazement. "Admiral, the humans identified a fundamental weakness in Devourer quantum consciousness networks. By targeting multiple nodes simultaneously, they created cascade failures that our single-point bombardment systems couldn't replicate. Their coordination was extraordinary." On the planet's surface, human sniper teams were already repositioning to support Coalition ground forces in mopping up the remaining Devourer resistance. The creatures that had seemed invincible just hours before were now reduced to isolated individuals, their coordination shattered and their tactical advantages neutralized. Morrison's radio crackled with incoming communications from Coalition units across the planet. Unit after unit reported successful advances against disorganized Devourer forces, evacuation operations proceeding ahead of schedule, and civilian casualties far lower than projected. "Overwatch 7, this is Coalition Command." Commander Zephic's voice carried a tone of grudging respect that had been absent during their initial meeting. Your tactical assessment has proven accurate. Human sniper capabilities are being integrated into standard coalition doctrine immediately. Colonel Martinez allowed herself a smile as she monitored the tactical networks, showing Devourer forces in full retreat across multiple continents. All sniper teams maintain overwatch positions and provide precision support as needed. Outstanding work, people. You've just changed the course of galactic warfare. The evacuation of Kepler 442c concluded 18 hours ahead of schedule, with civilian casualties reduced by 70% compared to previous Devourer engagements. More importantly, coalition forces had captured intact Devourer specimens and technology that would prove invaluable for future defensive operations. In the weeks that followed, human sniper doctrine spread throughout the coalition military. Training programs were established to teach alien marksmen the principles of precision targeting that had proven so effective against Devourer networks. Human advisors found themselves in demand across the galaxy, their expertise suddenly valued by species that had initially dismissed them as primitives. Morrison found himself promoted to tactical advisor for precision warfare, working directly with Coalition High Command to develop new strategies for combating Devourer forces. The quiet professionalism that had initially earned dismissal from alien officers now commanded respect throughout the galactic community. The Battle of Kepler 442c became a turning point in the war against the Devourers. For the first time since the conflict began, coalition forces had discovered a reliable method for neutralizing the enemy's primary tactical advantage. What had seemed like an unstoppable force of nature was revealed to have critical vulnerabilities that could be exploited through careful analysis and precise action. Human snipers, once dismissed as obsolete relics of primitive warfare, became the most sought-after specialists in the coalition military. Their ability to achieve devastating tactical effects with simple, reliable weapons proved that technological superiority wasn't always the answer to complex problems. The galaxy learned an important lesson during those critical hours on Kepler 442c. Sometimes the quietest solutions were the most effective ones, and sometimes the oldest traditions proved more valuable than the most advanced innovations. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through superior technology, but through superior understanding of how to apply precise force at exactly the right moment. As the war continued across dozens of star systems, coalition forces carried with them the knowledge that no enemy was truly invincible. Every creature, no matter how perfectly adapted or technologically advanced, possessed vulnerabilities that could be identified and exploited by careful observation and precise action. The Devourers still posed a massive threat to galactic civilization, but they were no longer an unstoppable force. Human ingenuity had provided the key to victory, and alien soldiers who had once dismissed Earth's contribution now competed for the honor of serving alongside human sniper teams. In the end, it wasn't humanity's technology that proved decisive. It was their ability to see solutions where others saw only problems, and their willingness to apply ancient skills to modern challenges. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but sometimes the most important discoveries came from the simplest observations, delivered with deadly precision from impossible distances by soldiers who understood that every shot counted.